My favorite line. And I always forget that they're recording and I will always talk about something.
That is a well-known issue, and why a lot of people are not concerned about telling somebody they're being recorded beforehand, because they know people tend to forget it. Arona is here.
Hello, good evening.
Hey, Lois, how are you? Hey, Arona.
Hi, Rabbi.
Very well,
Hi.
thank you.
Hi. Good. Good. I'll give it a minute or two.
You shouldn't be late to class. Without a good excuse.
I remember when I taught a Chumash class at Or Sameach, it was a morning Chumash class, and I was always late.
I'm shocked.
So it was just, I would say to myself, like, why? Why are you always late? Why don't you just go earlier? And I would just always be like, hey, Jude.
Because nobody
Hi,
expects
how are
you to-
you?
Excellent. How are you? Good to hear your voice.
Excellent, and your father's here.
Nice.
Nice.
Hi, Dad. I'll try not to embarrass you.
Never embarrass me.
Yeah. It's not what you used to say.
Yeah, you're funny, Andy.
Okay.
I love that they call you Andy.
You're always a kid to your parents.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So we are.
Are you going home?
Does this work now? I go to participants. I'm looking to do that, but oh, there it is. That's not what I wanted. More meeting settings, live stream up here. No, I know it's on the participants one. It's supposed to be in the participants one.
Going anywhere?
Oh, there it is. There we go. Okay, here we go. All right. So we are in a double parsha, Matos and Maseh. These are the last two Torah portions of the book of Bamidbar, the book of Numbers. I still have not gotten a conclusive answer as to how that happened, when that switched, and how it switched. The assumption is that it happened sometime during the Gaonim. But why? Like, why did they switch? Why did they stop calling those books? They're called it in the Gemara. Who thinks that they have a right to change the way we refer to the books of the Torah after it's referred to that way in the Gemara? The Sefer HaPekudim, the book of Numbers, is how it's referred to. And then somebody just started calling it Bamidbar. And that took hold, and now it's like we don't even remember that there was that thing. I don't know how that happened. Anyways, it's the last two parshas of Bamidbar, and the final one, which is Maseh, begins with a travelogue, like a list of the stops, the various places that the nation of Israel, the Jewish people, stopped along the way. So there are 42 places, which 42 is a it's a number of one of God's names, is a 42-letter name. And it's also the answer to the question in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy of it was the answer to the universe and everything in it, the great answer. They spent millions of years waiting for this answer. The supercomputer is calculating it, and then it came out with the answer is 42. But by the time it came out with the answer was 42, they didn't remember what the original question was anymore.
Right.
And in the TV series, the BBC TV series, it ends up that I think the question was, what is 7 times 8? And it miscalculated and came out with 42. It was something like that at the very end of it. Anyways, so it included here is Ramses, leaving Ramses and going to Sukkot, leaving Sukkot and going to the edge of the desert. And then it just goes through. Sometimes it'll give a little extra tidbit of information along the way. Sometimes it's just the name of the place. Sometimes the names themselves seem to contain some of the story of that place. Sometimes they're just a name. 42 in all. So this gives me an opportunity to reflect on an adventure that I just had 3 weeks ago, or 3 Shabbases ago. My grandson, Ashi, was bar mitzvahed in West Riders Park, and family came in, amongst the family that came in, my father and Judy came in, my mother came in, all sorts of people came in for this event, and one of them was my son Shauli from Israel. Now he was planning on coming to America. He needed to just visit family, but he decided to schedule it so he could be here for the bar mitzvah. And as long as he was scheduling to be here for the bar mitzvah, he also arranged, because my nephew was getting married in Toronto. So he scheduled it to be here for both the bar mitzvah and the wedding, and then he would leave from New York on that Sunday. So part of this adventure was going to be that we are going to drive to Toronto, and then from Toronto to New York, and then I would come back from New York. We also had a there and back to St. Louis, the two of us. So we got to spend lots of time together, and there was just lots of adventures along the way. We stopped off at Niagara Falls on the Canadian side. It was one of those experiences where it felt like every moment somehow was special. So as I was returning from that trip, this is something that happens to me on many occasions where I'll have experiences like this. Let's say I went to Israel last November on that momentum trip, and I came, back with all those experiences. So right before I'm home, I have this experience like everything is now have to be contracted in order to fit in to the routine of my everyday life. So there's this wide, huge experience that has so many facets to it and was so out of the ordinary. And then somehow, and while it's happening, I'm feeling expansive. It's not just that I'm looking, at a lot of things, I'm actually feeling expansive because there's so much. And my tendency, and I think a lot of people's when you're on these kind of trips, is to be hyper aware, to be very present and hyper aware. So you're noticing every detail, like of things that are going on, and that brings them into kind of sharp relief, and also makes them extremely memorable. You're really paying attention. You're really deeply paying attention. So then I'm thinking to myself, I'm experiencing it. It's like it's like you're making a zip file. Like you've got this thing, and now it has to contract and contract and contract because it has to get back into this place that I'm regularly in, that is part of my regular routine. Like at the end of The Hobbit or at the end of The Lord of the Rings, when they come back from their adventure to the Shire. So the Shire has been going about its daily life. Everybody's been doing what has been their routine for years. And this person's coming back from an adventure that is which is so remarkable and so big. And then they, you know, they're coming back. And if somebody says, so how was it? Like there's nothing, you can't even say. If you asked yourself, why is it that the Holocaust, the people who went through any aspect of the Holocaust, why is it that they didn't talk about it um, a lot? Why is it that was typical that they didn't talk about it a lot? Why is it that they didn't talk about it a lot? So there's a couple possibilities. One is that, as Elie Wiesel said, there really no words can capture it. No words can contain it. You could speak forever and you won't describe it or contain it. The only medium that really could possibly contain what happened is silence. So that's a possibility for why they didn't say it. But another possibility is also how to, maybe it's the same thing, but another angle, which is trying to take something so big and to bring it into a space that's so small. It's why there tends, I've heard people say this about television, that on television, even the medium does not, it is not designed to present thoughtful, deep communication. It's just there's something about it. There's also something about the fact of how you pay for it and all these kind of things that it just doesn't allow for it. It's a very thin space, and all you can fit in it is thin stuff or very small stuff, but you can't fit very big things into it. And it's the same thing with most of our language. We can't necessarily fit it, but it wasn't just language. I wasn't just thinking, how am I going to explain this to anybody? That after that momentum trip, when I went down to the kibbutzim and to Sderot and to Nova and to all those things. So and so there it was the big part of it was how am I going to explain, how would I even explain what's going on inside of me? But here it wasn't just that, it was just that I felt like I had become expansive. It wasn't just that I was in a wild place like Montana that just goes on forever, and I'm seeing something that's wide and expansive. I felt like as part of this whole thing, I felt that I was sort of expansive and that I have to constrict into this place. And I wondered if that's true about everybody. I suspect that there are some people that their everyday is like my experience on an adventure like that. The bigness, the wide, the 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 kind of harchava, the wideness of the experience, that they could have that in their everyday life. Because one of the things that I believe generates that experience, obviously there's several factors, but one of them is the being present and hyper aware, and being able to maintain that for a period of time. For some reason on vacations that involve, going to special places or seeing special people, those for some reason are easier to maintain this kind of hyper awareness and present and being in the present. Whereas when I'm in my everyday life, I'm not living like that. So I suspect that there are people whose everyday life is as expansive as my adventure life, and then when they come back, there's no change. Let's say they had the experience I have. So in some ways, the experience I had out there is their everyday experience. Their everyday experience. I've had this in learning. I've had this when it comes to learning, where let's say I work on something for many hours. There could be an idea that I'm working on for many hours, and 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 I come to some understanding of it, but I'm still left with questions. So then I say to myself, who can I talk to about this? So when you're in yeshiva, there's always people that you can no matter what your question is, no matter how hard you've worked on this, there's people that you can just walk up to and go, that, on daf, whatever, it says this. What about this? And the thing is, and they're right there. And we had I had rabbeim like that in high school and in Beis Medrash, and there were even just bachrim, other students or avreichim, married guys who were in the kollel, that were like that, where you could go up to them again about something that you're working on with pretty much all of your ability in order to work it out, and then you've got these questions, and then you walk over to somebody. This happened to me recently with one project I was working on, where I was working on for hours. I ended up coming on up with being left with like one primary question that I felt was not being answered. And so I walked up to three different rabbis, Rabbi First, Rabbi Reese, and Rabbi Moshe Soloveitchik. And each one was just like, oh yeah, no, obviously,
This
da,
one.
da, da, da. Like it was like they all gave slightly different answers, but they knew exactly what I was talking about. There was one where it felt to me like the question I was asking was it seemed like it was such a subtle question what I was asking, and this was a different question. I asked for Moshe Soloveitchik. I just saw him out in Emma's, he was in his car. I walked up to him. He's just sitting there in his car. I walk up to him and I go, this thing, etc. Why would this be usher? I don't get it. Why is this usher? So he goes, I have a theory about that. And then he tells me his theory. This is just like he is not just there all the time. He's there where I'm only there, for a week or two. He's always there. These people are always there. And I'm assuming that this is the case with that kind of expansiveness, that this person's always there. This is not exactly the same, but it's very similar. Ram Dass, Richard Alpert, who became Ram Dass. So Ram Dass tells the story of, he wrote the book Be Here Now, and was a kind of guru to the drug cult, the people who are involved with LSD and mushrooms and who are adventurers. We'll call them adventurers too. And so he really began early with LSD. He was a professor at Harvard, and he was in the psychology department. And he and Timothy Leary and a few other guys, they heard about LSD and they started experimenting with LSD. So part of their thing was they had a common shared experience, which is that when they're on LSD or they're on mushrooms or something else, they see that the world is not just what we experience in our everyday life. You see that it's way bigger than that. There's many layers to it. It's that you get a glimpse of the fact that there's so much more in existence than what we regularly acknowledge. And so, and you actually go there. So with let's say when you're taking the LSD or you're taking the mushrooms, you actually go to this place where you can see it, but then you come back. So to me, this is like you going on one of those adventures and then coming home. So you can go on the adventure and then you come back. When you come back, you reconstrict again. Now, you do have memories from the adventure, but you're not in the adventure. You know what I mean? That's a difference. Yes, somebody could say, yeah, well, you benefited because you saw this world and you saw that there's more to this world than meets the eye. So you benefited from it. Yeah, you benefited from it one time, but you and maybe every once in a while you'll get a new piece of information, but that's not what they wanted. They wanted to stay there. And you cannot stay there. You just go there, you come back, you go there and you come back. And at some point they gave it up. They thought that this was going to transform humankind. They really did. They believed that this was going to transform humankind because all you have to do is take this and you see
See
how
everything. How there.
what's what's going on, and it's so more beautiful, but also so deeper, so much deeper and so much more. So, but it didn't do it. And part of it was that you cannot stay there. They would try everything to stay there. They would try microdosing or you'd, as you're a little bit before you're going to come down, because they could time it. Apparently people who take LSD regularly they sort of know how long it takes for them before it starts to hit, and also when they start to come down, like when you start to come down from it. So they would try to take another dose before they're coming down, and maybe take it at this time, maybe take it at that time, to try to keep the high so that you could just stay there, but you couldn't.
Except they had to sleep.
Right. Or whatever, but somehow it didn't work. So then Ram Dass decided that maybe there's another way, maybe there's another path to get to that place. Not to visit it, but to get there, to live there, to live in that kind of awareness. So he goes to India and he tells this story. He goes to India. He eventually, right when he's ready to give up, he ends up meeting this man who becomes his guru. And one of the stories that he tells about how he cemented his notion that this would be his guru was that one day he and some other guys are around his guru, and the guru said, what is this LSD stuff that you're talking about? And they tell him, well, they try to describe it to him. And he says, do you have some of it? And so one of them had some, I don't know if it was on paper or it was on sugar. I don't know how they did it, but they had some, and he took it from them and he ingested it. And everybody's eyes were like wide because he took a lot. It was an amount that would be okay for somebody who's taken this a lot, but not for a first time. Yeah, not for a novice. And then they're sort of watching him because they want to see what was going to happen to him, and nothing. He does not change at all. They're having conversation with him. Nothing looks different, and it appears that there's no effect
No
on
reaction,
him.
nothing.
So his only his explanation was that this man always is in that place, which they had sensed from other things too, that he's just always in the place that they go to. He finally found the guy. He's been looking for the proof of this or the possibility of this, and
Is he sitting on top of a mountain?
no, but he was in India, and you probably had to climb some hills or whatever to get to him. In the end, toward the end of his life, Ram Dass said that you could get to these places through there's a lot of different ways to get to it. And he did say he felt like Judaism is one of the ways that even within Jewish practice, you can get to this place. Maybe it's also, well, who knows? But anyways, this experience of being in this wide place. I'm going to borrow a word. It's a Kabbalistic term. Mochen de Gadlus. It's like a big mind. And then Mochen de Katnin, which is small, like small mind. I don't know if they meant this, but this fits the words. This experience where you're in this very, very wide, expansive place, and now you feel like you have to fit back in to what is the kind of narrow confines of everyday life. So that was one observation. Observation number one. Observation number two. This was for the past several years, I've been surprised by space, in other words, the fact that I'm in one place and somebody else is in another place, that I don't, it just at some point seemed weird to me. Like I got on an airplane and then 10 hours later, I'm in a completely different place.
Yep.
Now, it's just a few hours basically sitting, and then I come in and I'm in a completely different place. These people are going about their lives, and I cannot regularly access this. They're having their whole life somewhere else, going on about everything. I'm going on about what I am. I'm in one place, they're in another place. I don't know why it struck me. It's one of these, it just struck me. This is funny. I don't know that space, that I'm in one place, you're in another place. Yeah. And then time goes along with it, the time zones. So for some reason, Shauli is in this other place and then a couple times a year, I'm in that place. I'm in another place. And there's like different stuff going on in this other place. And there's people just like me in this other place. And they're going about, it's just
living their lives, just
Yeah.
like you live your life here. They're living their life there,
right.
and
Right. And
it
it's
blows your
just
mind.
because of this notion of space. I wish I could articulate why that is so funny, but it was funny and it continues to be funny to me to this day. It does sound like something somebody might say if they were on LSD. I've never taken LSD or mushrooms or anything, but it was one of these kind of realizations that you typically hear from somebody that's on it. Hey, space. It's crazy, man. Anyways, so I've had this for a while, and also time. It's just time is weird. Oh, the fact that people are on a different time than we are, but we're communicating with them. We're somehow connected to them, but we can be at different times. So then this thought occurred. I had this thought maybe about 6 weeks ago. I just had it one day, and it just was one of those things that when you have a thought like that, it just stays with you. So here's the thought. Where would you say you are right now?
I'm here.
Yeah, where's here? Like, if you were describing it,
I'm
You're-
in North,
you're in Northbrook.
I'm at TLC,
You're at the Torah Learning Center in Northbrook.
right?
That's how you would think of it, right? That's how I typically think of it. That's how we're expected to think of it.
Well,
Like if somebody said, "Where are you?"
I
or
hear
"Where are you from?" What if somebody said, "Where are you from?" What would you say? Okay, you'd say the Bronx. What would you say? Where are you from? Right. And I would say, I'm from Milwaukee originally. Now I'm from,
here.
yeah. But so we identify with this local place. When I went to Israel as a yeshiva student, I had the experience within the yeshiva of being known as the person from Milwaukee. This is not uncommon. The Stipler was called the Stipler because he came from a town of Hornsteipel. People, a lot of times in yeshiva, if you come from an exotic, town location, a lot of times they'll people identify you by the town you're from. Also, Israelis identify you as an American.
Yes.
Okay. I remember the first year I was in Israel, the movie Superman came out, the first one, the way back one with Christopher, not the first one, but the one from the 1970s. It must have been 1978 or 79. This movie came out with Christopher Reeve. And there was this one theater in Israel, in Jerusalem, where it was all the tickets were bought out by Americans. So when you went into the movie, it was all Americans. And you saw a lot of people you knew from different yeshivas or whatever,
So when
and
the
girls.
subtitles in Hebrew,
Yeah,
the movie was in English,
yeah,
subtitles in Hebrew.
right. But there was one point where Superman says that he is, he fights on behalf of truth, justice, and the American way. And there was a standing ovation from everybody in the movie theater who missed being home. Just everybody these are mainly yeshiva guys and seminary girls and whatever, but everybody just stood up and shouted and gave a standing ovation to that phrase. Because in Israel, sometimes you're just an American. You're just an American, right? Now, imagine if Star Wars was real. Okay. And you're on some other planet somewhere, some other galaxy, and somebody's identifying you, they might say, "Oh, you're from Earth." Right. You're an Earthling. You're an Earthling.
Exactly.
Right. And that's appropriate. Now, if it's possible that if I was traveling on the edge of our galaxy, I would be identified by the solar system that I come from. And it's possible if I went, way beyond my galaxy, I might even be known as the guy from the Milky Way. That's possible. Yeah, but in other words, it it's true. In other words, but I don't consciously think in those terms, but it is true that if somebody said, "Where am I?" I could be experiencing my presence as being on planet Earth. It doesn't have to be that I'm in Northbrook. Why does it limit it to Northbrook? I'm in Chicago. I'm in the United States. That's what when people are talking about outside, when they're talking about me outside of it, they say I'm from the United States. And I also think of the United States sometimes as some kind of whole, a monolithic something. So why don't I identify? Why don't I say right now I'm in the United States? What time is it in the United States?
Depends on where in the United States.
So if I say what time is it where I am, the only reason I have a specific time is because I chose to identify my place as Northbrook. But if I choose to identify my place as being in the United States, if I think, why can't I think like that? Or just think I'm on planet Earth. If I left the planet and then came back, I would be excited because I'm on Earth, not because I'm just in Northbrook. I would be, because I've been thinking, oh my gosh, I just want to get back to Earth. So I would be excited I'm on Earth. And there would be a few days where I'm just thinking I'm on Earth. I'm so glad to be back on Earth. but I don't consciously think of myself on Earth any other time. But I could. Why is it that I identify my place? We do. You see here, there's 42 places they were. These are very specific locations, and it matters. Somehow your mazel is connected to your makom, to your place, to whatever the place is. So it somehow matters. But isn't it just a choice that you're making? It's of how to identify your location. You don't have to identify it as Northbrook. If somebody said to you, "What's your zip code?" then you have to answer them, your zip code. But when I'm walking around, I could think I'm just on the planet. I'm just on planet Earth. Why does my consciousness have to just, have that piece of information in it? You're in Northbrook. Why? I'm on the planet Earth. I'm an earthling. I'm on planet Earth. There was a book, there was a translation of the Torah.
Somebody asked where you
There's a
were.
translation of the Torah into English where they tried to keep the words as specific as possible to what was most likely the original meaning of it. So the guy translated Adam as groundling, because he comes from Adamah. He's a groundling. And I know he was thinking earthling. That was his first thing, but he figured everybody's going to just not take it seriously because it sounds like it's science fiction. But why did I just choose to think of myself in this very specific location? I could have a much more expansive sense of where I am. I'm in Illinois. When I was driving on my trip, I paid attention to when we moved from state to state. It mattered. When I was driving back from New York, now I'm in Pennsylvania. Now I'm in Ohio. This is where for some reason, Waze took me off the highway, off Interstate 80. There must have been some kind of construction traffic or whatever. It takes me off of 80, and then it takes me on these like county roads, and you're going through like cornfields and stuff. And then so at one point I'm traveling north, and then now I'm traveling east, just on a little county road. But it's one of those roads where you can go like 50 or 55, but it's still one of those narrow county roads. And suddenly there's like a couple of farmhouses near each other, and then there's just this sign, "Entering Indiana." It was like, and I was just noticing, like, these two guys are hollering distance from each other. They can wave at each other. Their driveways, are not terribly far from one another. One guy's in Ohio, the other guy's in Indiana, right? I don't know, on that trip, like, it mattered. I got into Illinois, I felt already like I'm home to some degree. You feel comfortable. You feel, all right, now I'm sort of home. Now I just have to actually get to my house. So I'm from Illinois. Why don't I think about that now? When I'm sitting here, why isn't that my consciousness? Somebody says to me, "Where are you?" I immediately say Northbrook. It's like in the back, it's part of my programming to relate to the local location. But why? Why do I have to think about that? I could have a much more expansive view. I could be in Illinois. I could be in the United States. I'm just in the United States. I'm just on the planet. I'm on this planet. But for some reason, it gets to this very local sense of where I am. And time, the sort of question you can ask yourself about this is, what time is it? What time is it is only a meaningful question if you're asking me my very specific location. But if I'm just on Earth, what time is it on Earth? What kind of question is that? What do you mean, what time is it? If somebody say to me, "What time is it?" I should have to think for a second, what could he possibly be asking? Oh, he must be in Northbrook, and he wants to know what time it is in Northbrook, because I'm just on the Earth. And you'd have to actually change from that expansive kind of consciousness. You'd have to change again to constrict it to how you're thinking about where you are.
On the map. That's what you become. You become the pin on the map.
I only become it by choice. I don't have to think that way.
Yes.
I don't have to think that way.
You
Right.
don't, but you
I
do.
I do.
Everybody does.
I know, but I
Rabbi,
don't have to. Yeah.
isn't it all context? Because let's say you have your cell phone and someone calls you and they say, "Where are you?" They don't mean Northbrook or
Target.
Chicago. They mean home.
I
I'm
know. No,
home.
no. I know. I know in
It's-
order to answer that question. But the thing is, before they asked me, I also thought I was here. If you would have asked me before they asked me, like if somebody would say, "Where are you right now?" I would have said Northbrook. And then when they ask me what time it is, it's not a confusing question to me. But again, it's because I've chosen to
pinpoint
to
yourself.
yeah. I'm not just in Northbrook. I'm in
You're a TLC.
right. If you were using spiritual language, you could say I'm in Olam Haza. I'm in this experience of Olam Haza. And that might be the most important context, and also if somebody says, "Where are you?" You could ask, when you say you, what specifically do you mean? Because also, what is me? Where are you? Uh, my soul might be in
Dancing
various
around somewhere.
kind of places, in spiritual worlds at some high parts of my soul, etc. So when you say, that should also be a question if somebody says, like, "Where are you?" When you say you, are you talking about my conscious awareness? Because my conscious awareness is in Northbrook. That's where it is. But if you're talking about, there's aspects of me that certainly are not here. There's aspects of me that are in some other kind of thing. And
Obviously, because someone could say when they're sitting next to you, because of the way you look, they'll say, "Where are you?"
yeah,
That's exactly.
Knowing you're not.
100%. Yes, but that's exactly this.
Yes.
This topic is this. I went somewhere in my mind, but the thing is, so you see, it is a choice you can make of how you think about it. But for some reason, we insist on staying very local. And it seems to me that we could be having a much more expansive experience if we'd be open to thinking about ourselves in in a wider kind of context. And also, it seems to me that one of the byproducts of that is that we would feel like we're connected to more people than we tend to think of, because in our little local thinking, there's not that many people that I'm thinking of on a regular basis. But if I'm on Earth, that kind of consciousness allows for me to think about a lot more people, like all the people on the planet or something. Or I'm in Israel. If somebody would call me when I'm in Israel, a lot of times that's what I'm thinking. I'm in Israel. I'm not thinking I'm on Rehov Paran in Ramat Eshkol. I'm thinking I'm in Israel. That's actually how I'm experiencing it.
I do the same thing.
Yeah, I'm experiencing that. So why can't I experience it when I'm back here?
Because if I'm at my son's house, I don't say I'm at my son's house. I say I'm in Israel.
Right. I know. So that's actually how you're experiencing it.
Mhm.
Right. So I could experience that, a bigger sense of my here than I tend to. I've done it in other places. Why can't I do it here? I'm not just in Northbrook. I'm not just in my house. Where are you right now? So somebody says, "Where are you right now?" I'm at home. That's not only where I am. I'm on planet Earth. Where are you right now? You could imagine somebody who's experiencing a moment where somebody else says to him, "Where are you right now?" And you would say, "Planet Earth."
You'd give them the longitude and the latitude.
Right. No, and it would be an appropriate answer. It's not an inappropriate answer. It's just that we for some reason never go there. I never go there except on a trip. On a trip, I start to think of, sometimes you can even say, I'm on a trip.
Yes.
right? I'm on an adventure. I'm on a road trip. Do you remember the road trip to Lake Tahoe? Do you remember the road trip to Maine? Do you remember the road trip to Bayfield, Wisconsin? That you were on a road trip. You weren't even in, it wasn't even about the specific geographical occasion you were on. You were on that. Okay.
Isn't that because
Yeah. Okay.
when you're on a trip, your
Yeah.
context is that you're not home. That's why you're on a trip, because you're not home. I think it's defined by where you're not, in a way. You're an American in Israel because they're Israeli and you're not.
No, but I'm thinking, when I'm in Israel and somebody says, let's say somebody who didn't know that, somebody asked me, where are you? I would say, I'm in Israel. That's a
No, I get
that's a
yeah.
present experience, but I'm still identifying myself. I mean, if that's the case, what you're saying, it's just like it's something that happens because when you're home, you're drawn to think of yourself locally. Then that could be overcome.
But when you were out
Right.
in the car driving from St. Louis back to here, to Toronto, to New York, you were on a road trip.
Right.
And that's how you would describe it.
And that's how I experienced my here.
Yes.
Where is my here?
Yeah. Somebody said,
So-
where are you? You would
Right.
have said road
Right.
trip.
Right. So, yeah. So just to review,
Well,
go
that's
ahead. No,
why
go.
those adventures with LSD and mushrooms are called on a trip. That's
Right.
why they're called
Right.
that.
Right. Right. So, again, the Torah portion of Masay gives me a chance
To travel.
to talk about some thinking, some thoughts I've had in the past, the sort of near past, about traveling. In the beginning of the Torah portion of Masay, it identifies these 42 places that the Jewish people stopped at on their journey from Egypt into Israel. And it gave me an opportunity to share with you that experience I had of being in some kind of very expanded consciousness, very wide space, and then feeling like I have to constrict it to bring it back in so that I can eventually go about my daily life, that there's a calendar that I'm going to shrink down into the calendar, and that there's time and everything like that locally that's going to matter, and etc. So that was one thing. And then the other thing is just the sense of here. Where is here? Like let's say in Ram Dass's book, it's be here now. Where's here? So I just realized one moment that I tend to think of myself as locally, but why? Why aren't I thinking about myself in
Because
a
your
more
physical
expanded
body-
sense? I know, but my physical body was wherever it was in Israel, but I still experienced it as being in Israel.
Well, Israel's kind of small.
Doesn't matter. It's got a lot of different places and there's
Yeah.
different people. And I just thought of myself as being in Israel. So why
That's
can't
the
I think of
state of
myself
mind.
like that? Yeah, I'm saying
Israel.
that here is
Yes.
because it's a
That's
choice of how to
it's-
think about it.
right.
It's a choice
Israel
of how
is
to think about it.
right.
Right,
Right.
right. And
Can I
so
ask about the
yeah.
Torah why do we have to know each place?
I
Which
agree.
is specific.
I agree.
Why didn't they just
But
say they wandered here and there? Yeah.
right. They were on a journey. Their location was a journey. Why do the places matter? But you can see that this question becomes much more urgent once you have gone to this place where I'm trying to take you for a minute. Now, why do these places matter? And also, there's this notion, Mashana Makom, Mashana Mazel, that if you change your place, you're changing your mazel. So what's your place? Like, what is your place? Why do you have to be so local? Why does local matter? All right. You've either heard the ravings of a lunatic mind, or you've heard me share something that might be meaningful. I look forward to, it's awesome to see you
Thank
guys.
you,
Ah,
Rabbi.
there's my
Those
grandson.
might
Look
Those
at
might be the
Alicia.
same thing. A
Look,
lunatic
Alicia.
mind and deep
That could
might
be.
be the
It
same
could
thing.
be. It could be,
Okay.
but you see my grandson right there? There's Alicia. Alicia.
How old is
That's
he?
cool.
Also, his father's next to him.
Oh, he
But he
doesn't
doesn't matter as much as that little kid right there. Right
Right.
now. And he knows it. Okay. Rachalea, excellent to see you.
Good to see you. I'm looking for Lynn.
Lynn is not here today. And you are absolutely right. She's at the Sunset. We know where. Did you talk to Debbie Dobkin?
No.
Debbie Dobkin has her contact info in her place. And I agree that I need to go there. Thank you for
Okay, good.
reminding me.
Maybe we can talk. I don't
Yeah.
know the details. Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
but Debbie Dobkin does. She knows
Okay.
the contact info for Lynn, who is an important member of our class, but she hasn't been here for a while. Okay. Be well, everybody. Mo, I
Thank
love
you,
you.
Bob.
Be well. Arona, thanks for
Thank you for another
signing in.
inspiring
Okay.
rant.
Okay. All right. There you go. There you
Thank
go.
you.
Be well. Bye-bye.
Bye.